a small town in Ohio, life moved at a steady pace. The streets were lined with modest houses, and the air carried the faint scent of freshly cut grass. Lincoln High School stood at the heart of the community, its brick walls weathered by years of service. For most students, it was just another ordinary place where they spent their days learning, laughing, and occasionally getting into trouble. That all changed when Lyra arrived. No one knew much about her at first. She appeared one Monday morning, walking through the school's double doors with a quiet confidence that made heads turn. Her silver hair shimmered under the fluorescent lights, catching the attention of nearly everyone in the hallway. Her eyes glowed faintly, an unusual shade of violet that seemed almost unnatural. She wore clothes that looked like they belonged in a sci-fi movie, simple yet oddly advanced, as if designed for function rather than fashion. The whispers began immediately. Who is she? Where did she come from? What's wrong? With her eyes? Students stopped to stare, some pointing openly while others whispered behind cupped hands. Lyra didn't seem bothered by the attention. Instead, she smiled softly and continued on her way, clutching a thin folder of papers tightly in her hands. By lunchtime, rumors had spread throughout the school. Some said she was part of a secret government experiment. Others claimed she was an exchange student from Europe or maybe even farther away. A few dared to suggest she might not be human at all. Most dismissed these ideas as wild speculation, but the seed of curiosity had been planted. Jake Miller, the self-proclaimed king of Lincoln High, wasn't satisfied with mere gossip. Tall, athletic, and charming, Jake thrived on drama and loved being the center of attention. He sat at his usual table in the cafeteria, surrounded by his loyal group of friends, including his girlfriend Claire Bennett. Claire was beautiful, with long blonde hair and a sharp tongue that matched her quick wit. Together, they ruled the school's social scene, and nothing amused them more than finding new ways to assert their dominance. "Did you see the new girl?" Jake asked, leaning back in his chair. His voice carried across the noisy room, drawing the attention of nearby tables. "She looks like she stepped out of a comic book." Claire smirked, twirling a strand of her hair between her fingers. "Maybe. She's an alien," she joked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "You know, sent here to study us before they invade." Jake laughed, slapping the table for emphasis. "Yeah, right. Like aliens would waste their time sending someone so weird." Their laughter echoed through the cafeteria, but it stopped abruptly when Lyra walked in. She carried a tray loaded with food, looking uncertain as she scanned the crowded room. Every eye followed her movements, making her hesitate. Finally, she chose an empty table near the corner and sat down alone. Well, Jake said, his grin widening. "Looks like we've got ourselves a real-life space cadet." Without waiting for a response, he stood up and sauntered over to Lyra's table. Claire rolled her eyes but followed close behind, eager to see what Jake had planned. As they approached, Lyra glanced up, her violet eyes meeting theirs with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Hey there," Jake said, his voice loud enough to draw even more attention. "Mind if we join you?" Lyra tilted her head slightly as if trying to understand the question. "I do not require companionship," she replied in a soft, melodic voice. "But you may sit if you wish." Her words only fueled Jake's amusement. "Wow, listen to that accent. Where are you from anyway? Another planet?" The surrounding students chuckled, but Lyra didn't react. Instead, she smiled politely and turned her focus back to her meal. Undeterred, Jake pulled out a chair and plopped down beside her, with Claire taking the seat opposite. "So, what's your deal?" Jake pressed, leaning closer. "Are you some kind of robot or something? Because you sure don't act like a normal person." "I am not a robot," Lyra answered calmly. "I am simply different." "Different, huh?" Claire chimed in, her lips curling into a sneer. "That's one way to put it. You look like you're auditioning for a bad sci-fi movie." Lyra frowned slightly, though her expression remained calm. "I do not understand why my appearance causes such distress. Among my people, diversity is celebrated." "Your people?" Jake repeated, raising an eyebrow. "What, are you saying you're not from around here?" Before Lyra could respond, Claire let out a theatrical gasp. "Oh my gosh, Jake. I think she just admitted she's an alien." The comment sent waves of laughter rippling through the cafeteria. Even some teachers paused to glance curiously at the commotion. Lyra, however, showed no signs of embarrassment or anger. She simply nodded and said, "If you choose to define me as such, then yes, I suppose I am an alien." The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of her admission sinking in. Then, slowly, the laughter returned. Louder this time. Jake leaned back in his chair, grinning triumphantly. "This is too good," he said. "An actual alien sitting, right here in our cafeteria. What's next? Flying saucers landing on the football field?" Lyra didn't answer. She finished her meal quietly, seemingly unaffected by the chaos unfolding around her. When she finally stood to leave, Jake called after her, "Hey, alien girl, don't forget to phone home." The nickname stuck. By the end of the day, everyone at Lincoln High knew Lyra as the alien girl. It became a running joke, a source of endless entertainment for Jake and his friends. They teased her relentlessly, mocking her accent, tripping her in the hallways, and spreading ridiculous rumors about her supposed powers. But there was one thing none of them could explain: Lyra's strength. During gym class later that week, the students were divided into teams for a game of basketball. Lyra, who rarely participated in physical activities, found herself drafted onto Jake's team. At first, she struggled to grasp the rules, fumbling with the ball and earning jeers from the other players. Frustrated, Jake grabbed the ball from her and shouted, "Just try to keep up, okay?" On her next attempt, Lyra caught the ball mid-air and spun around to shoot. To everyone's astonishment, the ball crumpled in her hands like paper, collapsing into a misshapen lump of rubber. The gym fell silent as Lyra stared at the ruined ball, confusion written across her face. "I thought this was how humans played," she said innocently. For once, Jake had no clever comeback. He stared at her, his mouth hanging open, as whispers erupted around them. Was it possible that Lyra really was different? Not just strange, but genuinely extraordinary? Despite the incident, Jake and his friends refused to let go of their teasing. If anything, it made them more determined to uncover the truth about Lyra. Little did they know they were about to discover far more than they bargained for. Lyra's arrival at Lincoln High School had turned the quiet town of Ohio upside down. The teasing from Jake, Claire, and their friends continued daily, but Lyra didn't seem to mind. She went about her routine with a calmness that puzzled everyone. While most students avoided her because of the rumors, there was one person who noticed something special about her: Alex Carter. Alex was a sophomore who spent most of his time in the science club or staring at the stars through his telescope. He wasn't popular like Jake or glamorous like Claire. In fact, he often blended into the background unnoticed by his classmates. But Alex had a curious mind, always eager to learn and explore things others considered strange or unimportant. So when Lyra joined the science club, Alex couldn't help but be intrigued. At first, Lyra kept to herself during meetings. She listened intently as Mr. Peterson, the club advisor, explained concepts about physics and astronomy. Occasionally, she would raise her hand to ask questions, but her words were so unusual that they left the other members scratching their heads. Once, during a discussion about black holes, Lyra asked, "Are humans aware that singularities can be harnessed for energy?" The room fell silent, and Mr. Peterson chuckled nervously before moving on. Despite her odd behavior, Alex found himself drawn to Lyra. After one meeting, he mustered the courage to approach her. "Hi," he said softly, clutching his notebook tightly. "I'm Alex." Lyra looked up, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the dim light of the classroom. "Hello, Alex," she replied. "You are interested in celestial bodies?" "Yeah," Alex said, surprised she'd noticed. "I love studying the stars. Do you like space too?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Space is my origin," she said simply. Her answer confused Alex, but he didn't press further. Instead, he began sitting next to her during meetings and striking up conversations whenever he could. Over time, Lyra opened up a little more. She told him about how Earth's gravity felt heavier than what she was used to, and how the colors of the sky fascinated her. To Alex, these comments seemed poetic rather than strange. One evening after school, Alex decided to take a shortcut, home through the woods behind the building. It was a path he rarely used, but he wanted to avoid running into Jake and his crew, who liked to hang out near the parking lot. As he walked, the sound of rustling leaves filled the air, accompanied by the distant chirping of crickets. Suddenly he heard a soft hum, a low, vibrating noise that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Curious, Alex followed the sound until he reached a clearing. There, standing in the center, was Lyra. Surrounding her was a soft blue light, pulsating gently like a heartbeat. Above her hovered a sleek, disc-shaped object, a spaceship. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the moonlight in mesmerizing patterns. Alex froze, his breath catching in his throat. His mind raced with questions, but before he could say anything, Lyra turned to face him. Her expression remained calm, almost serene, as if she hadn't been caught doing anything unusual. "You weren't supposed to see this," she said quietly. Alex swallowed hard, struggling to find his voice. What is that?" he stammered, pointing at the ship. "A vessel," Lyra replied. "It belongs to my people." "Your people?" Alex repeated, his heart pounding. "You mean aliens?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, though I am not entirely like them." Before Alex could ask what she meant, Lyra gestured for him to step closer. Hesitant but unable to resist, he obeyed. As he approached, the blue light enveloped him, warm and comforting despite the surreal situation. "I need you to promise me something," Lyra said firmly. "Do not tell anyone about this. Not your friends, not your teachers, no one." Alex blinked, still trying to process everything. "Why? What's going on?" Lyra hesitated, then sighed. "I am here to study humanity. My mother's species, the Veilith, are advanced beings who value knowledge above all else. They sent me to observe your world and learn about your kind. But my father—" She trailed off, her gaze dropping to the ground. "What about your father?" Alex prompted gently. Lyra looked at him, her violet eyes filled with an emotion Alex couldn't quite place. "My father is human," she admitted. "He lived among the Veilith and became one of us. I am the result of their union, a bridge between two worlds." Alex stared at her, speechless. Everything suddenly made sense. Her strange mannerisms, her incredible strength, her fascination with Earth. She wasn't just an alien, she was part human too. "I understand if you don't believe me," Lyra continued, "but please trust me when I say this must remain a secret. If others discover the truth, it could put both our worlds in danger." Alex nodded slowly, overwhelmed but determined to help. "I won't tell anyone," he promised. "I swear." Lyra smiled, relief washing over her features. "Thank you, Alex. You are kinder than most humans I have encountered." As the ship hummed louder, signaling its readiness to depart, Lyra stepped back into the light. "Goodbye for now," she said. "And remember, keep looking at the stars. One day perhaps humanity will join us among them." With that, the blue glow intensified, and the ship ascended silently into the night sky, disappearing within seconds. Alex stood in the clearing long after it was gone, his mind racing with possibilities. He had always dreamed of discovering something extraordinary, but he never imagined it would happen like this. The next day at school, Alex couldn't stop thinking about what he'd seen. He watched Lyra closely, marveling at how normal she seemed, despite her incredible secret. When Jake and Claire teased her during lunch, Alex felt a surge of anger. How could they treat her so cruelly without knowing the truth? Later that afternoon, Alex cornered Lyra outside the science lab. "Why do you let them bully you?" he asked. "You could crush them if you wanted to." Lyra shook her head. "Violence solves nothing. Besides, they are merely acting out of ignorance. Humans fear what they do not understand." "But they're hurting you," Alex insisted. Don't you care? I care, Lyra admitted. But pain is temporary. Hatred, however, can last forever. I prefer to show patience and hope that someday they will change. Her words struck a chord with Alex. He realized that Lyra wasn't just different because of her origins. She was wiser than anyone gave her credit for. From that moment on, he vowed to stand by her side, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Unbeknownst to either of them, trouble was brewing. Word of Alex's newfound friendship with Lyra reached Jake and Claire, sparking jealousy and suspicion. Determined to uncover the truth, they decided to follow Lyra after school one day, hoping to catch her doing something strange. Little did they know, their actions would lead to a discovery far greater and more dangerous than they ever imagined. For now, though, Alex and Lyra shared a bond unlike any other. Together, they represented a connection between two worlds, bound by curiosity, trust, and the infinite possibilities of the universe. Jake Miller and Claire Bennett were not used to being ignored. They thrived on attention, whether it came from their friends, classmates, or even their victims. Lyra's growing friendship with Alex Carter was starting to annoy them more than they cared to admit. To Jake, it felt like a challenge, a threat to his authority. How dare someone like Alex, a quiet nobody, get close to the girl they had labeled as the alien? It didn't sit well with him. Claire, ever the strategist, noticed Jake's frustration and decided to use it to her advantage. You know, she said one afternoon as they sat in the cafeteria, there's something weird going on with Lyra and Alex. I mean, why would she pick him over us? What are they talking about all the time? Jake frowned, stabbing at his sandwich with unnecessary force. I don't know, but it's annoying. Everyone knows she's just some freak show. Why is he acting like she's normal? Maybe they're hiding something, Claire suggested, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. What if Alex knows something we don't? Something big? Her words sparked an idea in Jake's mind. You think so? He asked, leaning forward. Like what? Claire shrugged, a sly smile spreading across her face. Who knows? Maybe that's why she acts so strange. Maybe Alex found out her secret. The thought excited Jake. If there really was a secret, and if they could uncover it, they'd have the ultimate weapon against Lyra. No more rumors, no more playful teasing. This could be their chance to prove once and for all that she wasn't just weird, she was different. And different meant powerful. That evening, after school let out, Jake and Claire put their plan into action. They waited until Lyra left the building, pretending to linger near the bike racks while keeping a safe distance behind her. To their surprise, she didn't head toward the main road where most students went home. Instead, she turned off the path and disappeared into the woods. What's she doing back there? Jake whispered, crouching behind a tree to avoid being seen. I don't know, Claire replied, her eyes narrowing. But we're about to find out. They followed her cautiously, stepping lightly to avoid making noise. The deeper they went, into the woods, the darker it became. Shadows stretched long across the forest floor and the air grew cooler. Finally, they reached a clearing, and what they saw stopped them dead in their tracks. Lyra stood in the center of the clearing, bathed in a soft blue light. Above her hovered a sleek, disc-shaped object, a spaceship. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the moonlight in mesmerizing patterns. The sight was otherworldly, completely unlike anything Jake or Claire had ever imagined. Before they could react, Lyra turned to face them. Her violet eyes glowed brighter in the dim light, and her expression shifted from calm to stern. You weren't supposed to see this, she said firmly. Jake's mouth fell open, and Claire grabbed his arm instinctively. Neither of them spoke for several moments, too stunned to form coherent thoughts. Finally, Jake managed to stammer, What is that thing? Are you really an alien? Lyra sighed, her shoulders sagging slightly. She glanced up at the ship, then back at them. Yes, she admitted, though I am not entirely like my mother's people. Your mother's people? Claire echoed, her voice trembling. Wait, you mean your mom's an alien, but what about your dad? Lyra hesitated before answering. My father is human, she said simply. He lived among the Valith, my mother's species, and they formed a bond. I am the result of their union. Jake stared at her, his mind racing. He had always thought the nickname Alien Girl was just a joke, something to rile her up. Now, faced with the truth, he felt a mix of awe and unease. So, you're half human, half alien? He asked, still struggling to wrap his head around it. Yes, Lyra confirmed. But this is not information I wish to share widely. Humans are not ready to understand the complexities of interstellar relations. Wait a second, Claire interrupted, her fear giving way to suspicion. If your dad's human, who is he? Where does he live? Is he like some scientist or something? Lyra shook her head. I cannot answer those questions. My father's identity must remain private. For his safety and mine. Jake crossed, his arms, skepticism creeping into his tone. This sounds like a load of crap. You expect us to believe you're part alien, part human, and that your dad's some big secret? Come on. Lyra's expression hardened. Believe what you will, she said. But I warn you, if you speak of this to anyone, there will be consequences. Oh yeah? Jake shot back, his bravado returning. What kind of consequences? Are your alien buddies gonna come zap us or something? Lyra didn't respond. Instead, she activated a device on her wrist, a holographic communicator that projected a faint blue screen into the air. A deep, authoritative voice spoke in fluent English. Lyra, your father wants to speak with you. The screen flickered, and a man's face appeared. He looked completely ordinary, middle-aged, with graying hair and a stern expression. His eyes scanned the area briefly before settling on Lyra. Are you alone? He asked. No, father, Lyra replied. 2 humans followed me here. They have seen the ship. The man's gaze shifted to Jake and Claire, who both froze under his intense scrutiny. I see, he said after a moment. We'll need to address this immediately. Jake's bravado vanished instantly. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just some prank. Lyra really was telling the truth, and now they were in way over their heads. The man addressed them directly. I am Daniel Harper, he said, and you've stumbled upon something far beyond your comprehension. I trust Lyra has explained the importance of discretion? Jake nodded mutely while Claire clutched his arm tightly. Neither of them dared to argue. Good, Daniel continued. Because if word of this reaches the wrong ears, it won't just endanger Lyra. It could jeopardize humanity itself. Do I make myself clear? Yes, sir, Jake mumbled, his voice barely audible. With that, the hologram faded, and the ship began to hum louder. Lyra gave Jake and Claire one last warning. Look before stepping into the blue light. The ship ascended silently into the night sky, leaving the 2 teenagers standing in stunned silence. For a long time, neither of them spoke. They simply stared at the empty clearing, trying to process what they had witnessed. When Jake finally broke the silence, his voice was shaky. Okay, so aliens are real, and Lyra's half one of them, and her dad's some dude named Daniel Harper. Did that actually just happen? Claire nodded slowly, her usual confidence replaced by uncertainty. Yeah, it did. As they made their way back to town, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that their lives had changed forever. They had gone looking for answers, but what they found was far bigger and scarier than they ever could have imagined. Jake and Claire didn't talk much on the way back to town. The weight of what they'd seen and heard was too heavy for either of them to process right away. Jake kept replaying the image of Lyra standing under that glowing blue light, surrounded by an alien spaceship. He couldn't stop thinking about Daniel Harper's face on the hologram, his stern voice warning them not to speak a word. It all felt surreal, like something out of a movie. But this wasn't fiction. It was real. Claire broke the silence first. What do we do now? She asked, her voice low and shaky. She glanced over her shoulder as if expecting the ship to reappear behind them. I don't know, Jake admitted, running a hand through his hair. We can't tell anyone, not after what he said. But we can't just act like nothing happened, Claire snapped, her frustration bubbling to the surface. This is insane. Aliens are real. And Lyra, she's half human, half alien. How are we supposed to deal with that? Jake sighed, kicking a rock off the path. I don't think we have a choice. If we say anything, who's going to believe us? People will think we're crazy. And if those aliens, or whoever they are, find out, he trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Claire nodded reluctantly. You're right. We can't risk it. She paused, then added, but what about Alex? He's been hanging around her a lot. Do you think he knows? Probably, Jake muttered. He's always sneaking off with her. Maybe he saw the ship too. The idea made Claire uneasy. Do you think she told him everything? About her dad and all that? Jake shrugged. Who cares? Let him deal with it. As long as he keeps his mouth shut, it's none of our business. Despite their agreement to stay quiet, the secret gnawed at both of them. Over the next few days, Jake and Claire found themselves watching Lyra more closely than ever. They noticed little things they hadn't paid attention to before. The way she moved with unnatural grace. How she seemed to understand things without being taught, and the faint glow in her eyes when she got emotional. Everything about her screamed, not human, but no one else seemed to notice or care. Meanwhile, Lyra continued going about her life as though nothing had changed. She attended classes, participated in the science club, and spent time with Alex. To everyone else, she appeared calm and composed, but inside she was worried. She knew Jake and Claire had seen too much. While she trusted her father to handle any fallout, she couldn't help feeling uneasy about how they might react. One afternoon during lunch, Jake decided to confront her. He marched up to her table, where she sat alone, and plopped down across from her. Claire hesitated for a moment before joining him. We need to talk, Jake said bluntly, his tone leaving no room for argument. Lyra looked up from her book, her violet eyes meeting his. About what? You know exactly what, Jake replied. The ship, your dad, all of it. Lyra closed her book slowly, placing it on the table. I warned you not to follow me, she said evenly. You chose to ignore that warning. Yeah, well, you can't blame us for being curious, Jake shot back. You've been lying to everyone this whole time. I have not lied, Lyra corrected him. I simply did not volunteer information. Humans often misunderstand truths they are unprepared to accept. Whatever, Jake said, waving her off. The point is, we know now, so what happens next? Lyra studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Nothing happens, she said finally. You will keep my secret, as I trust you must. Otherwise, you would already have told others. Jake opened his mouth to argue, but stopped himself. She was right. They hadn't said a word to anyone. Not because they wanted to protect her, but because they were scared of what might happen, if they did. Claire leaned forward, her curiosity getting the better of her. Why are you here anyway? What's the point of pretending to be normal? I am here to learn, Lyra explained. My mother's people value knowledge above all else. They sent me to study humanity, to understand your culture, your emotions, your potential. And your dad? Claire pressed. What's his deal? Why doesn't he want anyone to know about him? Lyra hesitated, her gaze dropping to the table. My father has sacrificed much to bridge the gap between our worlds. His identity must remain hidden to ensure his safety, and mine. Some among the Valeth do not approve of my existence. That revelation hit Jake and Claire hard. For the first time they realized how complicated Lyra's life truly was. She wasn't just some weird girl who didn't fit in. She was caught between two worlds, struggling to find her place in both. So what now? Jake asked again, his tone softer, this time. Are you gonna leave? Go back to wherever you came from? Lyra shook her head. Not yet. My mission is not complete. There is still much for me to learn. Jake and Claire exchanged a glance, unsure of what to say next. They had come to Lyra looking for answers, but instead they had uncovered questions. far deeper than they could have imagined. Later that evening, Jake and Claire met up at Jake's house to discuss what they had learned. They sat in his room, surrounded by posters of sports teams and video game characters, trying to make sense of everything. "She's serious, isn't she?" Claire said after a long pause. "This isn't some prank or experiment. She really is half alien." Jake nodded, staring at the floor. "Yeah, and her dad's human. That part freaks me out the most. What kind of guy marries an alien, or whatever they call it?" Claire frowned. "Maybe it's not so different. Love is love, right? Even if it's between two totally different species." Jake snorted. "Easy for you to say. You're not the one dating an alien." They both laughed nervously, the tension easing slightly. But beneath the humor, they knew their lives had changed forever. They had stumbled into something bigger than themselves, something they barely understood. And while they couldn't share the truth with anyone, they also couldn't ignore it. As the days passed, Jake and Claire began to see Lyra in a new light. They still teased her occasionally, but it was less cruel and more playful, a way to cope with their own discomfort. Deep down, they respected her in a way they never had before. She was brave, patient, and wise beyond her years. Most importantly, she carried a burden neither of them could fully comprehend. For Lyra, life went on as usual. She continued spending time with Alex, who remained blissfully unaware of Jake and Claire's discovery. Together they talked about stars, planets, and the mysteries of the universe. Lyra cherished these moments, finding solace in Alex's unwavering kindness and curiosity. But even as she embraced her mission on Earth, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was brewing. Her encounter with Jake and Claire had exposed her secret to more people than she had intended. And while they had promised to stay quiet, she knew that secrets rarely stayed hidden forever. Far away, aboard a distant Valith vessel, observers monitored Lyra's progress. Some praised her resilience and adaptability, while others questioned the wisdom of allowing a hybrid child to interact so freely with humans. Tension simmered, waiting for the right moment to boil over. Back on Earth, Lyra gazed at the night sky, her thoughts drifting to her father. She wondered if he was proud of her, if he believed in her ability to bridge the gap between their worlds. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she vowed to face them with courage and determination. Because in the end, she wasn't just an alien or a human, she was both. And perhaps someday, she could help others see that being different wasn't something to fear. It was something to celebrate. Jake couldn't keep quiet for long. It wasn't in his nature to sit on a secret, especially one as big as this. The more he thought about Lyra and her alien origins, the more restless he became. He convinced himself that he wasn't doing anything wrong by sharing what he knew. It wasn't like he was trying to hurt anyone, he just wanted answers. And maybe, just maybe, he wanted to prove to everyone that he had been right all along. One Friday night, after weeks of stewing over what he'd seen in the woods, Jake decided to take matters into his own hands. He pulled out his phone and logged into his social media account. His fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment before he started typing. "Biggest conspiracy ever. Aliens are real, and one of them goes to our school," he wrote. He added a blurry photo he'd snapped of Lyra during lunch, a close-up of her glowing violet eyes, and hit post. Within minutes, the post blew up. Comments flooded in, ranging from disbelief to outright mockery. Some people accused Jake of making it all up, while others demanded proof. A few even joked that he was just jealous because Lyra didn't give him the time of day. But as the hours passed, the tone of the conversation shifted. More students chimed in, claiming they had always suspected something was off about Lyra. Someone mentioned the incident in gym class when she crushed the basketball. Another recalled how she seemed to know things no one had taught her. By morning, the entire town was buzzing with speculation. The attention quickly spilled beyond Lincoln High. Local news outlets picked up the story, turning Jake's post into a viral sensation. Reporters descended on the small Ohio town, eager to uncover the truth behind the alien girl rumors. Camera crews set up outside the school, and helicopters circled overhead, their blades chopping through the crisp autumn air. Parents called emergency meetings with the principal, demanding explanations. Teachers scrambled to maintain order as chaos erupted in the hallways. Through it all, Lyra remained calm. She walked into school on Monday morning as if nothing had changed, her silver hair catching the sunlight streaming through the windows. Students parted like waves around her, some whispering nervously, others snapping photos on their phones. Jake and Claire watched from a distance, guilt gnawing at them both. "What have we done?" Claire muttered under her breath, clutching her backpack straps tightly. Jake shrugged, though his usual cockiness was noticeably absent. "It's not like we could have stopped it. Once I posted, it was out of my hands." "But you didn't have to post anything," Claire hissed, her voice rising. "You promised you wouldn't say anything, and look what happened." Before Jake could respond, a loudspeaker crackled to life. "Attention, students," Principal Thompson announced. "Due to recent events, we will be conducting interviews with certain individuals. Please remain in your classrooms until further notice." Panic rippled through the crowd. Everyone knew who the certain individuals were: Lyra, Alex, and anyone else linked to the rumors. As teachers ushered students into classrooms, government agents arrived on campus. They wore dark suits and carried clipboards, their expressions unreadable. Within minutes, they began pulling students aside for questioning. Lyra was the first to be called. She followed the agents without hesitation, her steps steady despite the storm swirling around her. Inside the principal's office, she faced a panel of officials who bombarded her with questions. Where had she come from? Who were her parents? Was she truly an alien? Lyra answered each question honestly but vaguely, careful not to reveal too much. When pressed about her father, she simply said, "He is human, and his identity must remain private." Her composure unnerved the agents, who weren't used to dealing with someone so unshakable. Frustrated, they turned their focus to Alex next. He stumbled through his answers, admitting that he had seen the spaceship but insisting he didn't know much else. His fear was evident, and the agents latched onto it, probing deeper. Meanwhile, Jake and Claire found themselves summoned to the office as well. Sitting across from the stern-faced officials, they squirmed under the weight of scrutiny. The agents asked them to recount every detail of their encounter with Lyra, from the moment they entered the woods to the holographic message from Daniel Harper. Both teenagers hesitated, torn between their promise to stay silent and the pressure to cooperate. Finally, Jake cracked. "Okay, fine," he blurted out. "We saw the ship, and yeah, her dad's human. That's all we know, I swear." Claire shot him a betrayed look but said nothing. The damage was done. By the end of the day, the situation had spiraled out of control. News vans lined the streets and reporters hounded students and teachers alike. Conspiracy theories ran rampant online, with some claiming Lyra was part of a secret government experiment and others suggesting she was preparing Earth for an alien invasion. Amid the frenzy, Lyra stayed quiet, trusting her father to handle the fallout. And handle it, he did. That evening, Daniel Harper activated a secure communication channel aboard a nearby Valith vessel. He addressed the leaders of the Valith, explaining the breach caused by Jake's post. After a brief debate, they agreed to intervene, not to punish humanity, but to protect Lyra and prevent further exposure. Using advanced technology, the Valith sent a signal that disrupted all electronic devices in the area, erasing any trace of Lyra from the internet. Videos disappeared, photos vanished, and posts were scrubbed clean. By morning, the world had moved on, dismissing the incident as a hoax. At Lincoln High, life slowly returned to normal, or as close to normal as possible. The government agents packed up and left, leaving behind a vague statement about misinformation campaigns. Reporters drifted away, searching for the next big story. Students went back to their routines, though whispers about Lyra lingered in the hallways. For Jake and Claire, the aftermath was bittersweet. On one hand, they were relieved the madness had ended. On the other, they felt a deep sense of shame for their role in causing it. They avoided Lyra whenever possible, unable to meet her gaze without feeling guilty. Lyra, however, wasn't interested in holding grudges. She understood that Jake and Claire's actions stemmed from ignorance rather than malice. Still, she recognized the need for a change. With her father's blessing, she arranged for a covert extraction team to retrieve her, before tensions escalated again. But there was one condition. Jake and Claire had to come along. When the agents approached them later that week, Jake and Claire were terrified. "What do you want from us now?" Jake asked, his voice trembling. "You're coming with us," one of the agents replied. "Consider it a learning experience." Confused and scared, the two teenagers reluctantly agreed. That night, under the cover of darkness, they boarded a sleek, disc-shaped spacecraft identical to the one they'd seen in the woods. Lyra greeted them warmly, her violet eyes glowing softly in the dim light. "Do not be afraid," she said. "You have much to learn." As the ship ascended into the sky, Jake and Claire stared out the window, their jaws dropping as Earth grew smaller and smaller below them. Stars stretched endlessly in every direction, their brilliance unmatched by anything they had ever seen. For the first time, they truly grasped the vastness of the universe and how small humanity really was. During the journey, Lyra introduced them to her mother's species, the Veilith. They were tall, elegant beings with translucent skin and luminous markings that pulsed like living constellations. Their voices resonated in harmonious tones, and their movements were fluid and precise. Despite their intimidating appearance, they welcomed Jake and Claire with curiosity rather than hostility. Daniel Harper joined them shortly after their arrival. He explained that the purpose of their visit was twofold: to educate humanity's representatives about the Veilith, and to emphasize the importance of peaceful coexistence. "Your world is young," he told them, "but it holds great potential. One day you may join us among the stars if you choose wisely." Over the course of several days, Jake and Claire explored the ship, marveling at its advanced technology and learning about the Veilith's way of life. They witnessed breathtaking sights, from nebulae ablaze with color to planets teeming with alien ecosystems. Through it all, Lyra served as their guide, patiently answering their endless questions and sharing stories about her dual heritage. By the time they returned to Earth, Jake and Claire were forever changed. They no longer saw Lyra or themselves the same way. Their petty teasing and selfish behavior now seemed trivial compared to the grandeur of the universe. They vowed to treat others with kindness and respect, knowing that humanity had much to learn before it could truly step into the galactic community. As for Lyra, she chose to remain on Earth, for now. Her mission was far from complete, and she still had much to teach those willing to listen. With Alex by her side, she continued studying humanity, finding beauty in its flaws and hope in its dreams. Together they gazed at the stars, dreaming of the day when Earth would finally take its place among the cosmos. Though challenges lay ahead, Lyra faced them with courage and determination. Because in the end, she wasn't just an alien or a human. She was a bridge, a symbol of unity in a divided universe. And perhaps someday she could help others see that being different wasn't something to fear. It was something to celebrate. Jake and Claire returned to Earth changed in ways they never expected. The journey aboard the Veilith ship had opened their eyes to a world, no, a universe, they had never imagined. They saw planets with skies painted in colors they couldn't name, stars that burned brighter than the sun, and civilizations so advanced they made human technology look primitive. For the first time in their lives, they felt small, not just physically, but in every possible way. It wasn't a bad feeling, though. It was humbling, like realizing you're part of something much bigger than yourself. When they stepped off the ship and back onto Earth, everything seemed different. The air smelled heavier, the ground felt less solid under their feet, and the sky above them looked dull compared to the vibrant hues they'd seen in space. Jake glanced around at the familiar streets of their town and shook his head. "I can't believe we thought this was all there was," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. Claire nodded, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Yeah, I mean, how do you go back to normal life after seeing all that?" "You don't," Lyra said softly from behind them. She stood with Alex, who was smiling faintly, clearly amused by their stunned expressions. "But you adapt. That is what humans are good at." Jake turned to look at her, guilt twisting in his stomach. "Lyra, I'm sorry. For everything. I didn't get it before, but now I do. You're not weird or strange, you're amazing. Claire nodded quickly, her voice barely above a whisper. We were jerks. We didn't deserve to know your secret, and we definitely didn't deserve to see, well, all of that. She waved her hand vaguely, as if trying to encompass the entire universe. Lyra smiled gently, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the sunlight. It is all right. You have learned, and that is what matters. Humans make mistakes. It is part of being human. But learning from those mistakes, that is how you grow. Her words hit Jake and Claire hard. They realized that Lyra wasn't angry or upset with them. If anything, she seemed almost proud of how far they'd come in such a short time. Still, they knew they couldn't undo the damage they'd caused. The rumors might be gone, erased by the Valith's technology, but the memory of their actions lingered, for them and for Lyra. Back at school, things slowly returned to normal. Students went about their days as if nothing had happened, though. Some still shot curious glances at Lyra whenever she passed by. Jake and Claire kept their distance, avoiding eye contact and speaking only when necessary. They weren't sure how to face her without feeling ashamed, even though she had forgiven them. Instead, they focused on changing themselves. Jake stopped teasing people for no reason, and Claire toned down her sharp tongue. They began sitting, with quieter students during lunch, making an effort to include others instead of excluding them. At first, their classmates were confused by the sudden change in behavior, but over time they noticed something different about Jake and Claire. They seemed kinder, more thoughtful. Alex, meanwhile, remained close to Lyra, their friendship growing stronger with each passing day. He continued helping her study humanity, asking questions and sharing insights about culture, history, and emotions. Lyra appreciated his curiosity and patience, finding comfort in his unwavering support. Together, they spent hours gazing at the stars through Alex's telescope, dreaming of the future. One evening, as they sat side by side in Alex's backyard, Lyra turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "Do you think humans will ever join us among the stars?" she asked. Alex hesitated, considering the question carefully. "Maybe someday," he replied. "But we've got a long way to go. We fight too much, hate too easily. Until we figure out how to work together, I don't think we're ready." Lyra nodded, her gaze drifting back to the night sky. "You are wise, Alex. Perhaps that is why my father chose you to help me." "Your dad chose me?" Alex repeated, surprised. "What do you mean?" Lyra smiled faintly. "He watches over us, guiding me when needed. He believes you have potential, a spark that could inspire others." Alex blushed, unsure of how to respond. Before he could say anything, Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "Thank you, Alex, for believing in me when others did not." The moment was interrupted by the sound of footsteps crunching on gravel. Jake and Claire appeared from the shadows, looking nervous but determined. "Hey," Jake said awkwardly, shoving his hands into his pockets. "Can we talk?" Lyra studied them for a moment before nodding. "Of course." Jake cleared his throat, glancing at Claire for encouragement. "Look, we wanted to say we're sorry, really sorry. What we did, it was stupid. We didn't understand what we were messing with, and we hurt you. And we don't expect you to forgive us, but we just wanted you to know that we've been thinking a lot about everything you showed us. And we're trying to be better," Claire added quickly. "Not just for us, but for everyone. We don't want to be those people anymore, the ones who judge others without knowing them." Lyra listened quietly, her expression softening. When they finished, she stood up and walked toward them. For a moment, Jake and Claire tensed, unsure of what to expect. But instead of anger or disappointment, Lyra extended her hand. "Thank you for apologizing," she said simply. "That takes courage." Jake stared at her hand, then reached out to shake it. His grip was firm, though his hands trembled slightly. Claire followed suit, tears welling up in her eyes. "We'll keep trying," she promised. "We won't let you down." Lyra smiled, her violet eyes glowing warmly. "I believe you." As the four of them stood there under the starlit sky, a sense of peace settled over them. They weren't perfect. None of them were, but they were learning. And sometimes, that was enough. In the weeks that followed, Jake and Claire became advocates for kindness and understanding. They started small, standing up for kids who were bullied and reaching out to those who felt left out. Their efforts didn't go unnoticed. Soon, others began following their lead. Slowly but surely, the atmosphere at Lincoln High shifted. People laughed more, argued less, and treated each other with greater respect. Lyra watched these changes with quiet satisfaction. Her mission wasn't complete. She still had much to learn and teach, but she felt hopeful. Humanity had flaws, yes, but it also had potential. Potential to grow, to adapt, and to reach for the stars. One crisp autumn evening, as she stood alone in the clearing where Jake and Claire had first discovered her secret, Lyra activated her wrist communicator. Her father's face appeared on the holographic screen, his expression warm and approving. "How goes your mission, daughter?" he asked. "It progresses well," Lyra replied. "Humans are capable of great things, Father. I believe they will one day join us among the stars." Daniel Harper smiled. "Then perhaps our sacrifices have not been in vain. Continue your work, Lyra. The universe awaits." With that, the hologram faded, leaving Lyra alone beneath the vast expanse of the night sky. She tilted her head back, letting the cool breeze brush against her face. Somewhere in the distance, a spaceship hovered silently, its engines humming faintly like a lullaby. For now, Lyra would stay on Earth, continuing her studies and sharing her wisdom with those willing to listen. But deep down, she knew her journey was far from over. One day, she would return to the stars, to her mother's people, to her father's legacy, and to the infinite possibilities of the universe. And perhaps, someday, humanity would follow.